Hey there, I'm Allen Firstenberg.
And I'm Mark Tucker, and welcome to Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs. Howdy, Mark.
Hey, Alan. Should I even ask how it's going?
I don't know anymore. I really don't. I mean, in between keeping up with everything that is going on,
Yes.
plus my usual projects, plus some great opportunities as a GDE, plus some other stuff, it's just been incredibly overwhelming. Um, so there's a lot going on, but it's really, really good to see you and connect with you and just kind of have a nice chat this evening.
Yeah. And I thought we would talk about a subject. One of the things I get to do with my new role is dive deeper into Microsoft technologies and stacks. And so I thought today we would talk a little bit about GitHub Copilot and just
Okay.
walk through through some of the features on that, and also just kind of bring up, in case people haven't thought about it for a while, the opportunity to get a certification. So I'm talking about a
Hmm.
GitHub 300 certification specifically related to GitHub Copilot.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to go ahead and start off on this screen. This is a poster of all the different um, certifications available from Microsoft and GitHub. And if you come down here to the end, there's this one called GitHub Copilot GH300. Just recently took that test. And if you click on this link, it's going to take you over here to this certification learning site. And this is basically what I did to get going on this. Um, so just wanted to kind of walk through some of the things that I've learned. If you're going to get certification or not get certification, that's okay. This is a good learning source. It gives you a lot of background, so it could be a good resource for you to use. But specifically, if you are going to go for that GH300 cert, then this would be a good site to start with. So we're going to go ahead and talk through some of these different um, things with GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot is something that plugs into, in this case, Visual Studio Visual Studio Code as an IDE. It plugs into other IDEs as well. Great. So this is Visual Studio Code, and you know that you have GitHub Copilot installed because you see this little icon down here, which tells you about Copilot usage and some settings. You can access this panel here in Visual Studio Code. That would be for Windows is Control Alt B. We'll open and close that. You can also see some different things inside this code window. But let's start with something very simple. Let's
It,
say we want to go ahead.
no, no. Before you do, this actually gets into
Yeah.
one of the issue, the kind of questions, I guess. There's Copilot, and there's Copilot, and there's Copilot, and there's Copilot.
Oh my gosh,
So
there
you
are
just
so many.
referred to the Copilot window, right? Now
Yeah. So this is
I know that that is the Copilot that is the code assistant like thing. Are we going to be
yes.
talking about that? Are we also going to be talking about developing Copilot modules? Are we what's the scope of what we're talking about tonight, I guess?
Yes. So we are talking only about GitHub Copilot, which is the code
Okay.
assistant that lives inside of an IDE. And Visual Studio Code is one of
Okay.
those IDEs. Now, there is
Okay.
Copilot Studio. There is, I think, M365 Copilot. There's lots of Copilots, and Copilots is definitely overused, overloaded term. But we're talking specifically about GitHub Copilot.
Okay.
So one of the things that you can do, so this is the Copilot chat window, and you've got inside of just your main editor. So if you're inside your editor, and one of the things that GitHub Copilot lets you do is ask questions about your code. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this code. Notice I got some sparkles here. So this is GitHub Copilot saying I can help you modify or review that. That's one of the things that we can do. Or you can do On Windows, it's Control I. On Mac, I think it's Command I. Um, so this brings you up an inline chat, so you don't have to go to a separate chat window. You could be inside the editor, just bring up this and start asking a question. There are different ways to talk with it. You can select which what model you're. A lot of times for code stuff, I'm using Sonnet 4, but if I'm asking questions about things, it's maybe more like documentation or other things. I can use GPT. So you can experiment and
That's really interesting that it does have all of those models available. I mean, because it includes Sonnet, it includes GPT,
the newer, yeah,
it includes Gemini,
yep.
it included, very healthy selection there.
Yeah, and then I think I haven't played with this, but this auto is it's auto select, and so I think it's kind of trying to look at the query that you're doing and figure out which model is going to be best and try to save you some money by using these models when it's needed, and then using these more powerful models when you need those. So. So I'm in here. I've got a slash command that I can do, which is explain. So I can just say, I could probably, this is short enough, I could just do explain and then hit enter, but I could also say, what, is this doing, right? I'm like, what is this? I've got an if underscore underscore name, and it's checking for underscore underscore main.
I have long asked that question about Python main, but that's another story.
So here it goes. It tells you that when you're running this directly from the command line, that it checks this. Here's it goes. It tells you a little bit more. I had to scroll up. So if it's name main, it checks to see if it's run directly as opposed to being imported as a module into another script. So this is using the inline, inside your code editor command here, but you can also come over here to the chat window, and notice in the chat window there's 3 different modes. You can do ask mode, edit mode, or agent mode. So we'll talk about what each of those are for, and you can also select which model is being used for the chat window. So ask mode is same type of thing. You could say explain. And notice that you've got some different choices. You've got explain at workspace and at terminal. So at workspace is going to take your whole Visual Studio workspace into context, but more specifically what the open window or open editor window is. Or you could specifically say, I want to add that. And let's see, I can say explain what is similar between, and I can do a hashtag here, and that's going to bring up my files between AppPy and hashtag, let's look at ChatPy. So now we're going to just be in this chat window here, but it allows us to add some additional context. So this gives you there's hashtags, there's slashes, and there's ats. They all, hashtags are more like, it gives you a kind of a hint down here. Hashtags are context that you're adding, which usually means files. Extensions, in this case at workspace, you could do an at like Visual Studio Code. So you could ask for different things. You could also ask about what's in this terminal window here, which is helpful. And then slash commands, you can have help if you need some additional help. You could do explain. You can ask it to fix. You could create a new file or a new project. You could set up unit tests. You can actually execute your unit tests, or like flush out your
It occurs
unit
to me that
tests.
that saying, specifying look in the terminal can be useful if if you've tested something or you've run something in the terminal and it gave you this long error message.
Yep.
Instead of having to copy and paste that, you could just say, explain what the error message over there in the terminal is actually telling me.
Yes.
That seems really powerful.
Yeah, and you'll even, depending on certain situations, you might in the terminal window see some of those sparkles. Like I said before, when we highlighted this, we got sparkles. Sometimes that happens in the terminal window too. So it's just like different places where it's trying to be helpful. So here we asked a question about comparing these two files. What's similar between AppPy and ChatPy? And it's like, oh well, and you can even kind of see what it did. It says, oh, in the context of this workspace, it's using three files for reference. It picked up the AppPy, ChatPy, and then this GitHub Copilot instructions file is what it's using to help figure out what it's doing. And like, they both define a main function. They talk about entry point. The code organization is fairly similar. So then it talks about some differences. So this is kind of one of the things that you can do with Ask. So this is kind of what I used to do with ChatGPT. Is just ask different questions about code, or like, what's the library that does this, or can you explain more? So it helps you get into your code base, understand what's going on, understand new libraries, new frameworks. But you could also, in Ask mode, have it do something. So let's say we want to add a function to print the current date. Now, because we're in Ask mode, it's going to answer this in here. It's not going to touch your editor window. It might generate code. In this case, we're hoping that it will. But then it's going to give you a way to bring that code from this chat window over into your IDE. So while it's doing this, I'll explain a little bit about what edit does. Now, edit is going to be very similar to ask, but it's going to be targeting where you want to say, hey, I want to make this change, and it will update your code window for you. But it's more like, I've got a tool, and this tool is going to help me. It's going to kind of like supercharge my IDE to help me solve problems, but I'm very much in control of what it's doing. I'm saying, add a function to do this, do something over here. Not sure why this is taking so long. But there we go. It just had to think. So there's the function that it created. Now, all that code exists over here. It's not over here. But I've got tools where I can say apply to this file. I can insert it at a specific place where the cursor is, or I can copy and then paste it myself. So let's go ahead and just add that here. And so now it's updated this to add this function. Shows you where things have changed and gives you the ability to walk through the different changes, and then you can either keep or undo. So let's go ahead and just keep that.
How much of that visual diff do we see is a kind of native VS Studio versus something that that Copilot is doing?
Yeah, so I
I mean,
think
I see now, once you accepted it, we've got the standard, bars of here's what's changed and so forth. But how
yeah.
much of that diff was a VS Studio thing versus a Copilot thing?
Yeah, so what it seems like to me is the point where it's allowing you to keep or undo and walking through the different changes. Seems like that part's the GitHub Copilot part. But and then probably the diff editor is probably the same for, just standard Visual Studio Code stuff. But the ability to kind of walk through, and also when we have changes over here, a lot of times it will allow us to walk through the different code, kind of
Okay.
look at things file by file, but then we can also accept changes by change. I'm going to go ahead and take
Okay.
this back out here because I want to switch over to edit mode. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and that cleared the chat mode. I still have access to this hash, these context extensions and commands are still available here. But let's see if I now say, I didn't want to do that. Add a function that prints the current date. And if I've got this file selected, I could also, just drag and drop files over here too, if that's the way that you like to do it. So in this case, now I'm very much wanting to say, edit my code, but I'm telling you exactly what I want you to do. See, so now instead of just printing the code here, it's automatically adding it. And then this keep undo with this, change one, change two is something that I get. Plus I also, if I look at here, I get diffs. I could go specifically to, like if it has a whole bunch of things that it changes, then I can go to specific sections where it shows where the code's changed. I can also go through here and check and say I want to keep this one, but I don't want to keep the file changes here. Or I can keep, so I'm just going to, in this case, I'm going to do just an undo of the whole thing. Instead of giving you code that you can evaluate and then copy or paste over if you wanted to, this one is actually making changes to your code. And the thing that's going to be safeguarded for you is just the Git and pull requests and things like that is how you're going to be able to keep your code buffered from changes if you didn't want to, or if you wanted to revert back. All right. So that's edit mode. Now, agent mode is like having a helper where you're going to say, I want to implement this feature, or I want you to make this change. So I attribute it to when we talked about like reasoning models, where they can kind of plan out, figure out what to do, and then make a series of changes according to that plan, right? So let's go ahead
Okay.
and change this into agent mode. And so that's cleared out our session. It's interesting because at times it runs your code and it checks the terminal and see how things go. And it sometimes it goes off on its little way. It's like being helpful. It says, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And sometimes it's a little bit like too wants to be too helpful or too. It just like keeps going and like okay. Well, I saw an error here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, and then it jumps in and does that, and you're just like whoa, 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 whoa. So you still
Well,
want
one of
to.
the things that's always fun using Gemini CLI sometimes is to have it, is to say, I want you to make this change, and it says, okay, I've made this change. Now I'm going to recompile it and rerun it and check check it against the test output. And I'm like, what test output? Are you
Yeah.
inventing test output too? What?
So let's say let's this agent. Let's say let's create a file that loops through a list of names and picks those that are, I don't know, A through Z. I have no idea. I'm just making something up. Or A through K. All right. So let's see what it does. So you'll start seeing it kind of think through, reason things through, and kind of figure out what it wants to do in solving this. So it's kind of summarizing what it understood, echoing back. So it's like, okay, I'm going to create a name filter py file that didn't exist, and so I've created that, and it's decided a function called filters names A through K. And I can run this file. Sure, go ahead and run that file. What do we got here? So it's opening up another PowerShell terminal over here. Oh, we're going to have a problem here. I don't have Python installed on my computer.
I like how you didn't even. What was that?
So I don't have Python installed on my computer because I've got this dev container set up. So I actually go
Oops.
into Docker. So let's see what it does. Okay, so it's going to say that Python's not installed on it. Let me try running it with the full path. It's like, okay, I couldn't find it. It didn't work here. Let me try this thing. I don't know. We'll stop it before it gets too far.
Well, no. I'm curious to see how far it goes. Um, Curious to see the
Python was
files.
not
I mean, it
found.
created the file and put code in it, I assume.
Yeah, so here's the code over here. So yeah, it's just checking if the name, the first character in the name, lowercase is in this list, and then it created some sample data for me that I could run. All right, so here it's wanting to run the git command Python file. So it would keep going. It would like try to install this, but it's trying to do. It's like you told me to do this. I'm going to try to figure out how to do this. Sometimes it didn't do it in
I
this
have to say,
case.
I'm impressed.
Sometimes
It came. I'm impressed. It came up with 26 names, one for
yeah,
each letter of the alphabet. Not bad. I mean,
yeah,
it's not a great
and
test case, but it's not bad.
no, it's not. It's something to to get started, and but this would be where if you wanted to start doing more like here's a feature or here's like a instead of like edit mode is like do this now do this. This one you can kind of like here's a little bit bigger of a job where you have to figure some stuff out. In this case, it didn't do it, but there are definitely times where at the top here, it creates a to-do list and says, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And as it does those things, it checks it off the list. So that's the main part that I wanted to show is just kind of, how to use it. I installed GitHub Copilot like way back in the beginning when it first came out, and I was like, okay, this isn't really working. And kind of gets in the way, but I actually like it quite a bit now because I can change what different modes. I can figure out what model is going to help me, and I can ask questions. And I'm right here developing it. Figure out a library or how to do something. I can spitball ideas and have it answer my questions, and then I can get into edit mode and be very surgical and say do this or do this or I've used this. I created just recently an application with Electron that was using React. I haven't really done Electron before, and I've done Vue.js or other things like that, but not much with React. And I just used GitHub Copilot to say this is the feature that I want to do, or okay, I tested it and here's an error. I want you to handle these edge cases or things like that. And it jumps in and, goes about its thing and tries to be as helpful as possible. So,
Yeah, when the first code assistants came out, I was really unimpressed. They really felt like they were getting much more in my way. But I guess,
yeah,
when I started using Gemini CLI, I very much got this, oh, I can really use it just on my terms and yet still
yeah.
have it really well integrated. And I'm seeing other people are saying similar things about, the new crop of code assistants, including Copilot.
Yeah, and we're not going to talk about it today, but it's definitely a topic for a future conversation. But there are frameworks or kind of code that you can add here, and under a GitHub folder, you could add instruction files and things like those slash commands. You can add prompts over here that relate to your own, so you can create custom stuff. But there's more and more that's coming out with where you can define like a specification and say, these are like some overarching guidelines when we develop software that we follow. And here's some very specific instructions if I'm going to develop with TypeScript. These are the things I want to have done. So then you can start creating like an overall specification and then like a feature and have that help generate tasks. And it actually keeps files in your code that have to do with what those tasks and specifications are. And you can tweak them and fine tune them, and they're all just markdown files. And then you can turn GitHub Copilot loose using all that spec as guidelines to say, now implement this in C# or implement this in Python. And it, figures out, what you're trying to do, all your features and the individual tasks that you're trying to accomplish, and it generates code. So it's a much more controlled way. And then you would check that spec in as part of your code, so that it's documentation, but it's also you could go back and tweak something, regenerate part of your code or something, and it's much more spec driven than code driven.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually pretty clever.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in some future one, but just wanted to give people kind of a glimpse of what GitHub Copilot looks like today, and just let them know that there's a certification that you can go and take, and the Microsoft Learn documentation for that preparation for that cert was helpful in understanding how it works. He even talks about like behind the scenes. There is an LLM in the cloud that when you enter something in the IDE, it takes what you typed for your prompt plus the context of what files. It does some stuff and then it sends that to the cloud. But before it does that, it runs it through a proxy, and it's going to try to detect if somebody's trying to hack the LLM and try to get like the underlying instructions, or profanity, or it tries to figure out if what you're doing is something that really is something that's code generation. And then the LLM does its thing, and on the flip side, it also goes through a series of checks just in case the LLM would output some offensive language, or even check to say if I've used too much of a big code segment that was on GitHub itself. It can eliminate those. So there's a whole proxy server between your IDE and the LLM that does some filtering both on the input and on the output. I thought you might be interested in seeing, since you and I had talked about
Yeah,
this a while
interesting
ago.
stuff. Yeah, I'm really curious to hear how other people are using these code assistants, because they like I said, they have matured a lot. Love to hear more what people are saying.
Yep.
As always, feel free to leave comments below. Find us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll talk about this another time on Two Voice Devs.
Two voice devs. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Mark. You take care.
All right. Thanks.